Show you different ways that you can get patterns to do embroidery. So I may have a problem.
Yeah.
I have a lot of whips. I have a lot of embroidery whips. Depending on how you count, I have 43.
What?
43. And it's partially your fault, and it's partially the fault of a sloth. Brittany tasked me this year with doing a deep dive into embroidery. 43. Well, again, depending on how you count. How you
Is there more? Oh my goodness.
Okay, so Brittany had me do a deep dive into embroidery so that we could add some embroidery content to the website and to the YouTube channel. So as with any project that I take on, my first stop was the library, and I ordered every embroidery book that they had, keeping in mind that I belong to 4 different library systems. It was a lot of books.
Mom doesn't have to.
No. That's why I was given the task of focusing on one craft this year. This is my craft for the year. So the first place, and we're going to go through this video, I'm going to show you my whips, but probably the more interesting thing for you is in the process, I'll show you different ways that you can get patterns to do embroidery. And what I've learned is I've done embroidery in the past, usually just some simple outlining backstitch to serve some other craft. And I think that's one of the great things about learning embroidery as a skill is that it's a great foundational craft that helps you in many other crafts.
Yeah.
It's something that you can add to embellish other things that you're doing. Embroidery, of course, is a skill and an art in its own right, but it's worth learning some basic stitches because you can use them in quilting, in the new creative mending,
Felting. You can incorporate it in.
Yes, all kinds of things. Holiday decorating, different types of things. So it's a worthwhile skill to learn. And one of the first places and a free place that you can go are books from the library. So the first project, the one that got me in real trouble, was this book, Freshly Stitched. I ended up buying this book after I ordered and looked at literally, 300-400 embroidery books. I ended up buying 2. But of course you can use books from the library. So this little sloth, this is a sloth in case you can't tell, was really outside of my skill level. I didn't realize it at the time, but I just jumped in as I do and started this little sloth. So when I finished and showed it to my husband, and I was making this for Bailey's art wall at her house, my husband said, "What's wrong with his face?" Well, in the transferring process, I lost some of the detail, and because it just felt clunky and it wasn't my best work, I wanted to do it again. So I started another sloth with a different transfer pattern so that I can see all of the detail. And I'm doing it again. And even just beginning with the stem stitch and these new leaves, the very first leaf that I did for the second time my skills have expanded so much in the process that it just felt natural, and the muscle memory is there, and I knew that I had made the right choice doing it again. I hardly ever do things twice, but I really wanted to master this one. So that one started.
That's 2.
Yes. In the process, don't count. In the process, I also came across this book, Mandalas, I never quite get that right, which I shared in the transfer video because this book came with iron-on transfers, my favorite way to transfer a pattern, but you hardly ever get this opportunity. Even though these have been designed to be super colorful, I have a guest room that's all in blues, and I wanted to do all of these blue toned.
That's so pretty.
And this is the one I've finished, and I love this. I love it. It kind of reminds me of like a Dresden plate or
or those like tiles.
Yes, the tiles. That's what I'm saying, Dresden tiles. And so I got started on my second one, and I'm going to talk about why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it, all of these different projects. One of them is just to master these stitches. So since I started all of the projects at once, when I master a stitch, I'm basically going back and doing that stitch on all of my begun projects because I'm building mastery so much faster. So I would forget how to do a stem stitch or forget how to do a split stitch, but once I've done it on a dozen projects, it is fully and in my mind and my skill forever. So I'm enjoying doing it that way. So I have those. There are 12 of these, and I'm going to frame them and fill a huge wall in this guest room. And I'm going to probably finish this next because I'm really excited.
Yeah, those are going to be beautiful.
About how pretty they are.
Are you doing all of them in those colors?
Yes, the whole thing is just going to be a big wall of this blue design. It's the room you usually stay in. We call it the Princess in the Pea Room, which will come up again in this stack. Well, then I realized that Etsy is a endless treasure trove of embroidery patterns. And once I got into Etsy, things got really dicey. And I found this designer. We have an Airbnb that is themed as a library, the Cozy Library, and I have all kinds of bookish art and literary type art. And I stumbled on these patterns because I'm always searching for that. Etsy served this up to me. And so I bought this lady in her stack of books that I'm working on. And because I liked that one, it thought I would like this one, which I did. So I have this lady walking with her stack of books and this whimsical library that I'm also working on.
That's cute.
And these will also be framed and go into the Cozy Library Airbnb. Okay, so for the Vlogmas challenge that we have coming up in November, December, one of the projects that Brittany gave me to work on was a embroidery pendant projects. Now these patterns on Etsy, and there are 9 of them. I'm only doing 8. Transferred them on, we'll be embroidering these and then adding them to necklace pendants. And I'll probably do 2 sets of these as gifts for the holidays. So whether you count that as one project or 18.
18.
Semantics. Okay. But while I was looking for tiny embroidery projects to make these pendants, Etsy served up this other project, which I couldn't resist. And it's 6 of these tiny little, they're going to become Christmas ornaments. And I have a neighbor who's done a lot of really special things for us this year with helping us watch our house. And I wanted to do something extra special and handmade for her. And this kind of fits the look of her house. So I'm going to make these 6 little ornaments that will go in the tiny embroidery hoops for a Christmas gift. So there was that. Those have been transferred, so technically started. The other project Brittany gave me for Vlogmas was a nativity scene embroidery, which we'll be showing as one of the projects for the month. This was also an Etsy pattern that's been transferred and started. Very excited about that one too. So far we have books and we have Etsy. The next place you can get patterns are just for free from the goodness of the designer's heart floating out on the internet. And when I went looking for those, I mean, they're free. So there was this first one. These are from cutesycrafts.com. And I will say there are going to be a lot of links for all of these things that I'm talking about. We will do a link to a full blog post where I put all the links for everything and credit every designer and everything that I've chosen for the video. But she had this Princess and the Pea free pattern. And we have a guest room that we call the Princess and the Pea room because the bed is almost about waist height. You have to do a little bit of a
taller for me.
Pole vault. We give it to the fittest people in the family because you have to be able to climb up in there. And I thought, well, that would be such a cute wall hanging for that room. And I'm doing a little experiment with this very printed fabric. I'm not sure how it will turn out, but like the blue and the study in blue, we'll call it, this will also be in all blues. And this is designed so that you're trying all kinds of different appliques.
Well, it's like a sampler.
Yes. So some of them actually have pieces of fabric cut out and appliqued on
that's cool.
every few mattress, which adds a little texture. And this is just going to be also gorgeous, I think. And I'm just curious to see how all that busyness and pattern translates to this. This is a washable interfacing, so that's fun. As you can see, a lot of these I've just done the outline, sometimes the split stitch or the stem stitch, because those are stitches that I've mastered basically. And one thing that has really helped just doing these over and over and over in different patterns is that my stitches have become so much more even. And I like that because it was bothering me when they were not even.
Yeah, and embroidery evenness is very obvious, right?
Yes.
Or lack of evenness is pretty obvious.
I also think it's considered the mark of your skill, the more even and, you know, particularly that your stitches are. I'm not trying to be a perfectionist, but I am a little bit. Okay, and then in my searching for free patterns, I also found this darling little roadster bike, and this one was designed to be in red, but I actually have a turquoise bike that looks just like this, so it spoke to me. And I also wanted to try something super tiny. All of these stitches will be done in one strand, like the pendants, and it's quite detailed. So this will be a little bit of a stretch for me, especially this basket, because each...
Oh, wow, that is very detailed.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get all the texture of that basket, but it's going to be a good challenge. Yeah. And so I'm doing this in the same turquoise as my bike, and this will become like a Christmas decoration. Maybe a little wall hanging. It's a little big to put on the tree, but something. Okay, also free, again, we will link to all of this, is this great sampler that I came across quite a while. This is one of the first things I finished.
That's so cute.
Yes. And I just picked random, very rainbowy colors that I wanted to do this in. And as I do these stitches, then I go back and I apply them to my other projects. Like you've got some French knots there I've been learning. Mostly have been doing running stitch and outline, but it's just really fun, very relaxing.
And this is one that you talked about in the transfer video as well, right? Because you use the different pins to show the different colors.
Yes. Also, a good place to add another plug for my hack. I use a lot of pins that disappear when you iron. That's the friction heat sensitive pins. And I started marking the corners of all of my projects with an H if it's heat sensitive ink, because I took this out and wanted to iron it for the video today. And so you can see I ran the iron across it and realized
it disappeared.
Whoops. And so that bit disappeared. Fortunately, it's in a spot where I can just put the pattern back on. It won't be a big deal. But it was learning process, and I said, I better mark that, especially when you have all these projects and it's going to be a while before I finish them all. I'm going to forget how I transferred. And likewise, if I used ink that isn't going to wash out, I want to know and remember that, because I want to be sure that I've covered my lines and I don't,
so they don't show.
Yeah, because sometimes I'll just flub it and think, oh, well, that's going to wash away.
Right.
So I'll make my own new line with the yarn. Okay, next way you can get patterns is to make your own. If you have any artistic skill, you can just draw or freehand. I don't have much drawing artistic skill, but I created this for the website and for the series. And if you want the link to get this through your email, we will give you this pattern. And it's designed to be a basket, which many of you love baskets, but it's also a sampler. So there are 6 main stitches in embroidery covered in this pattern. So I made this for that video, but I also wanted to do it in a completely different colorway. And so I started one for a Christmas project. So this one will be in red, white, and green. And then I'm going to bling this out and add beads at the cross points and some kind of a bauble for the handles and make this pretty glitzy and sparkly and, well, blingy. Another thing I learned that you can benefit from is don't cut away all the fabric around your pattern, because then it doesn't go into the hoop. So,
how are you doing that one?
Well, frustratingly. So, those of you who are experienced embroiderers are probably rolling your eyes right now, but I didn't think of it until after I cut away all the extra fabric and then tried to put it in the hoop and realized. So I'm either using, if I have to, I'll just use a smaller hoop.
Oh, okay.
Just doing little by little, section by section. But then there's parts where I'm just taking it out of the hoop,
doing it
by hand, which is frustrating. So don't do that. I'm pretty sure I won't ever make that mistake again. But in case I save anyone else the same frustration, there's my honest oops. Okay, next up, if you've never heard of Canva, Canva is a graphics design program that you can use for everything. You can make everything from literally make books to edit pictures to making videos, social media posts, everything. And we are Canva members. We do have a pro account. You can get a free account, and there are many things available on the free account. But if you are an educator, you can get a pro account for free. Or if you do any kind of design work or in this business, it might be worth it for you to get a pro account. When I started looking around, I thought, I bet there's a lot of good line drawings and graphics on Canva that I could use as embroidery patterns. And one of the first things I found were these leaves. So I did a series where I printed out 3 different leaves. I'm going to stitch these up to do wall hangings for the fall. They were free. I was able to blow them up to the size I wanted, printed them out, transferred them to my fabric. And the tip here, because I haven't actually started stitching these, I thought, well, what colors should I go with? And I opened my boxes of all my embroidery floss, and I was kind of going back and forth because I didn't really know which colors would be fall and which go together, like what their undertones, the more technical side of color design. So I just did a search online and said DMC floss fall colors. Wouldn't you know it, someone else has already thought of all this. Nice. So there are millions and millions, probably literally millions, of palettes that people have already created with DMC floss. So they'll take a beautiful photograph, pull out the colors, and then give you a palette with the DMC numbers, attached. Just like when we're doing web design and you can find palettes for the codes, these are just codes for your floss. So I came up with this palette of colors, and I'm going to stitch up those And
Pretty.
yes, and I'm not sure, I want not just a back stitch. I want to challenge myself to use a more advanced stitch. So I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to use yet, and that's why I haven't started. I'm waiting until I learn some more stitches. But I have my other Canva, which is my little hippo friend that I found. And our grandkids are currently obsessed with hippos. And I thought that doing a hippo for their playroom would be super fun. And I'm just going to do the outline, so this won't take long. And here's an example. I learned the Lazy Daisy stitch and decided to do the outline in Lazy Daisy, which gave it,
That's really cute.
it's almost like a little curly Q, or
bubbly to
yes,
me, like it's surrounded by bubbles.
Yeah, so it's fun, and it gave it some texture rather than just doing an outline back stitch. And this will just be done in the pink, gray, and black. So again, very simple. But I picked up this fabric. It was a curtain from my neighbor, and I liked how it had just a little texture and a little bit of the white on white pattern. And I thought it would be fun again to experiment with what it ends up looking like when you do the embroidery on something that already has a pattern, but just adds a little visual interest.
Yeah,
so
that'll be great, especially with the simple stitching, having that added pattern to pop the design out.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
And again, on Canva, if you do a search for the subject that you want and line art, you will find all kinds of black and white drawings. Many of the line art will be free, so if you want to just sign up for a free account, you should have endless choices. But if you already have a pro account, you want a pro account, you would actually have millions and millions of choices in just about any topic that you could think of. There's going to be something. Next up are coloring books. A few ideas. These are not ones that I'm going to do, but I have this National Parks coloring book. And if you've been in the embroidery world at all, the National Park kits and patterns, and they're out there. And I thought with the skill, especially if you're an embroidery, what do you call those, thread painters?
Yeah.
Like you have that ability. I'm not quite there yet. Some of these would just be stunning. Yeah, so there's an example of a coloring book. Another one would be something very motif-like this Mary Englebright coloring book I've had for ages. This would be a fun outline to do, like for a child's room. You could do a set of 4. When my son was born, my mom made him a teddy bear quilt, and each panel of the quilt was a coloring book of a teddy bear. She found a coloring book of teddy bears, outlined them onto white fabric. She just did simple embroidery, and then she turned that into a quilt for him, and that was his baby blanket until it basically rotted and fell apart. So coloring books for children are a great place to find gorgeous patterns, especially if you want something that's very themed. This one I happen to have around the house, and it's just really abstract, but some of these struck me as things that would be...
Oh, it reminds me of mandala.
Yeah.
You could do something similar.
Yeah, really, they could be very fun, a good way to practice your stitches, and you could get as simple or as crazy as you want to.
Adult coloring books are super popular, have been for a while now, so there's a lot of options.
Yeah, every topic you could think of. You could do anything from a Van Gogh painting look-alike to, I don't know, there's endless. But this is the one I chose to work from. It's the Word and Color coloring book. It has like Bible verses that are done very graphically. I've had this for a long time. So I went through, I'm not usually a word art on the wall kind of a person, but a couple of these really spoke to me. So I picked out, these also technically aren't started because they're going to be quite advanced for me. So they're one of the last projects I'm going to do. But I picked this one out for the laundry room. It's clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, the verse I need in front of me all the time. But I also thought the line art with the vines and then the different fun that I could have with the clothes, that this would be a really fun, more advanced one for me to design down the road. And also, this is another one, think on these things. If you're familiar with this verse, another one that I need to have in front of me all the time. And I love this typewriter because I'm a writer, so this one spoke to me. And I'm going to do this one and the word of the Lord endures forever with all of these wonderful books. And I'm going to use these to go in the cover of my binders, my Bible study binders.
Oh, yeah.
And so these are kind of an advanced, I'm going to have to do all the color design, all the stitch design myself. So I'm saving these for the end when I have my full tool belt of stitches to do because, yeah, that's going to be a project in itself. And last but not least, this was also an Etsy pattern, but I saved it for last because it's probably the most ambitious of all the projects I have. And I've just about finished. This is the first page. It's a sampler book that I bought from Embroidery by Nat. Yeah, Embroidery by Nat. Again, we'll link up to everything in the show notes. And it's a hybrid, because if you go to her YouTube channel and website, this is all available for free. But if you go to her Etsy shop, she sells this, and I didn't pay much for it. I think it was maybe $7 or $8, as most embroidery patterns are. And you get a full little booklet. There will end up being, I think there are 15 pages altogether, with a complete library of stitches. And one thing I'm loving about this is that she has you do each stitch with 1 strand, 2, 3, 4, and 6.
So you can look back and be able to reference.
Yes.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So by the time you're done, you have a full reference library of your own. Rather than, buying an embroidery reference book, you have your own, and you can see how each stitch looks. And as I'm doing these, this is the one that really turned the table for me and helped me to feel like I'm actually mastering this craft, because I do these. This is enough for me to have it down by the time I do the 5 lines of each one. And then I'm going back to a few of my projects and employing where those stitches belong. And by the time I'm done with that, and I've done it maybe a dozen times, it's just really in there. Like, I know these stitches now, and I have the ability to keep them consistent. And so I'm progressing a lot faster, even though I'm not finishing the project. So this will then become the pages that will go on to a book I'm going to make with accordions. And I'm sure when I'm finished, we'll do a complete video on how I pulled that together. So that is my final project, again, with about 15 pages. So really 15 separate projects of its own. But I have hope, Brittany, because you give me a few deadlines for some of these. They're related to the Vlogmas challenge, or it's a Christmas present, and I want to finish it for that reason. But in January, that's where my hope is. Because, why don't you tell us?
Okay, so in January, I'm going to be doing a works in progress challenge. So every day, I'll be publishing a video, and they'll be approximately 15 minutes. I'm going to try to keep them pretty condensed so you have time to watch them every day. But the goal is to bring your current works in progress, and we'll try to knock some of those out in January. So apparently, Cheri's going to bring a bunch of her embroidery projects. I'm going to bring a bunch of my whips in progress and talk about how to stay motivated in the new year to work on your creative projects, develop a creative practice where you have creativity time every day and can just kind of devote some time to doing the things that you love, but maybe it's hard to find time to fit them into your daily schedule. So that'll be an everyday thing through the month of July. And if you join our email update list using the link in the description below, you'll get notified when we start publishing those videos. And I think we're going to try to do a corresponding email every day with the video, just to remind you, hey, we have a new video out. Here's the link, and a little extra blurb from one of us from the team, just sharing like what we're working on and some added motivation for that challenge.
So just to remind you again, we'll have a link in the description to a blog post with all of the links and all of our new embroidery content. One advantage to starting so many projects, because I was transferring, I just made a lot of mistakes really quickly, which really sped up the learning process. The needles that I learned about, the different hoops, I have some definite favorites and not favorites, the floss and how to organize it. We've done all of these videos in the series, and they have corresponding blog posts. So if you want to get started with embroidery, we have you covered. We have all the basics and all the beginning tools needed for you to get started, as well as the links to all the different places that you can get patterns.
43 projects, well, that's a lot.
I can't wait to come back and do the projects I've completed in the last 6 months video.
Yeah, that'll be really fun to see.
Yeah, I've set a flag in the sand, and now I'm on the clock, right?
Yeah, it's good. Mom mentioned as she brought her pile in today that if I had 43 projects, well, she actually didn't tell me the number until, when you heard about the number. But she said if I had 43 projects, I would have filled the whole house, because my projects are bulky and baskets take up a lot of space. But the benefit of embroidery, if you're working in a tight space, start embroidery, not basket weaving. Yeah. Because it's very compact in comparison.
It's the perfect travel craft. If you travel a lot or you commute not if you're driving. Don't embroider while you're driving, but right. Yeah, it's very portable. Yeah. I mean, you saw the stack, 43 projects, and that's all the room it takes.
Yep. Thanks so much for joining us for this whips video, and we hope our tips on where to find embroidery patterns were helpful. Again, all the info is in the description, so check there for links and things like that. Until next time, happy making, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.